Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of We Watch Shudder. My name is JD. Who's here with me?
I am Michelle.
That's right. We're here to talk about another new release from Shudder, the best horror and weird movie streaming service available out there. If you're not a Shudder subscriber and you like horror movies and weird movies, then you're fucking up. Pardon my language, but get on it. It's like $6 a month. This week, the new, as we do here on We Watch Shudder, we talk about the Shudder original and exclusive releases, things that you can only get through Shudder. And this week, the release is an animated film called The Spine of Night. Just gonna read you the description right straight off the service. It says, "This violent fantasy horror epic about the history of a land that never was begins when an ambitious young man steals forbidden knowledge from a sacred plant." Ooh, drug themes. "He falls to its darker temptations, and in so doing unleashes ages of suffering onto mankind. As his power grows over the years, it falls to people of different ilk and culture to attempt to stop him. Among those who stand against him are a daring tomb robber, star-crossed lovers, a maniacal necromancer, winged assassins, and an undying guardian. A Shudder exclusive." I don't know about you, but that's a pretty incredible list of things involved in this movie right at the end there. Michelle, hit us with your spoiler-free thoughts up front here.
All right. So, spoiler-free thoughts. I loved this movie. And I am not surprised I love this movie because I like anything that I have not seen before and I don't see very often. And in this case, it was a beautiful animated horror film. I love the old movie Heavy Metal. The Last Unicorn is one of my favorite movies. And seeing that kind of animation style created in 2022, I loved it so much.
I have to, I agree somewhat. I don't think I'm quite as over the moon about it as you are. I did think it was a beautiful film, and it was so cool to see this. For those of you who aren't aware, this is a rotoscoped animation. The backgrounds, of course, are beautiful paintings, but then if you don't know what rotoscope is, that's where they actually film people carrying out the actions, and the way they do the animation then is they lay the animation cell over that filmed footage, and they trace lines based on the actual people's movements, and it creates this sort of eerily hyper-realistic cell animation. Anyway, it's super cool. You see it in movies like Michelle mentioned, Heavy Metal. She also mentioned The Last Unicorn, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Anything Ralph Bakshi did is pretty much all rotoscoped. There's a movie called... he did the first animated Lord of the Rings film, but also a movie called Wizards that I love. Super fun animated film. Yes, I really enjoyed this one. When it comes down right to it, it's not one that I'm going to be rushing to watch over and over, I think, but I definitely had a good time checking it out, and I feel like most people who enjoy cool, weird animation and also savage, bloody violence and gore, if you like Conan the Barbarian, the unedited version, this movie is going to be for you. I'm going to go 3.5 out of 5 skulls.
I am going to go 4.5.
4.5, man. You really did love this movie.
The thing is, when we get into the spoiler version, I will talk about where it had its downfalls, but
Sure.
That first 45 minutes, I was in love with this film.
Right on, right on. All right, guys, so as we do here, I talk about it like we've been doing this forever. It's episode 2. Anyway, so if you haven't seen the movie yet and you want to see it without any spoilers, this is where you're going to want to stop listening for now. Go watch the movie, and then you can come back and listen to the rest of this and hear what we thought about things in more detail, because that's what we're going to do right now. Michelle, hit us. Give us some thoughts here.
Okay, so first off, everything Patton Oswalt does is magical, and that man can do no wrong.
He was
and
fantastic
hearing him,
here.
hearing him doing a non-comedic role and being just straight up villain, I loved it. I
Oh,
loved it so much.
he was creepy as hell. Oh
Yes.
my god.
Yep, yep, and I think that's partially why I loved it. Then you have Princess Xena doing the main voice, Lucy
Oh yeah,
Lawless,
Xena Warrior
and
Princess was
or
the
Xena, yeah,
voice
Xena
of
Warrior
the
Princess.
main character in the film.
Yep, yep, and she is a huge environmental activist, and this movie had a huge message about uh, relationships with the earth and how we are harming the earth and how, human beings think they're superior. And so her playing that role was great. And then we have the animation style, which I just like things that you can't really see, and that gore.
Oh, it was so
I
cool.
Oh my, I don't feel uncomfortable very often when I forgot his name, but Patton Oswalt's character is revealed as what happened to him after he messed with Xena. Then it was so gross, and
Oh
I was
yeah.
like, this is like, it made my skin crawl, and I loved it. I
Yeah.
loved it so
I mean,
much.
as long as we're digging into the complete spoiler version here, what Michelle is talking
Yeah.
about is this lady lights his face on fire with magic flames, and then they show you just his burned, scarred, mangled Freddy Krueger face, and the way it's drawn. Like, part of what I love about it is very much this old school, very basic, rudimentary
Yes. Yep.
cell style animation, but it does, like, that gives them the ability to use some nice cool color pops in the gore, and they just go for insane. Like, this is an insanely violent, gory movie. This is like I mentioned earlier, Conan the Barbarian taken to the nth degree. The guy's literally getting chopped in half and guts falling out.
Yeah.
There's literally a giant cloud of blood that flies through the movie at one point. It's violent and brutal and messed up. There are also, if you're a person who enjoys sort of psychedelic experiences of a variety of kinds, whether or not drug induced, whatever you do is up to you. There are some crazy visual sequences in this film. Some wild, just kaleidoscopic, beautiful moments that I imagine would be incredibly fun to trip to if that was a thing you were prone to doing.
I've never done mushrooms, but I do have to say that I think that parts of this movie are what being on mushrooms feels like. Like,
I
this is how I envision it.
I am open to admitting that I have experienced some psychedelics in my time, including mushrooms. I would say not in a literal sense, but definitely in a metaphor, like the psychological experience of it. Yeah, it
Okay.
gets pretty wild, and this was really cool. And what it really is the kind of things that will help trigger the pleasant elements of that sort of experience. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
okay, let's just say it. If you like psychedelics, go on a trip and watch The Spine of Night. It's going to be a good
And
time
listen
for
to
you.
the music.
Yep, the
Oh,
music
that
was
music
really
is
really
gonna
good.
put you in a good zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I I did start the movie, and my first impression of it is, what is this almost naked big titty woman doing walking through the snow and not freezing to death? But of course,
Yes,
the
I
movie
know.
explains entirely why she's not freezing to death. Ultimately, she's this, and so I thought that was super cool. She ends up being like this multiple millennia reborn, like, god avatar. It was wild.
There's just a lot of nudity in a non-sexual way.
Yes,
Just like
yes.
everybody is naked,
Also,
and they're just like close up of the dick, cover it in blood. This lady's gonna like get broken into a million pieces, but make sure you get that badge in that shot.
right.
It's just a lot of nudity.
Right. I do want to point out that I think, to at least a certain degree, these were at least, and again, it's animation, but I think these were somewhat more realistic body types than you would
Yes.
see in a lot
Yep.
of animation. Again, the lady, the main lady, her everything about her body is sort of standard, average real life woman, except her breasts are still impossibly round and elevated.
Yes.
It's so,
I
but
know.
that is definitely a throwback to those really exploitational, sort of not sleazy, but definitely that sort of fantasy things like heavy metal and artists like Frank Frazetta and Boris Vallejo and that sort of thing. It's certainly a throwback to those ideas. Yeah, I now where the movie did ultimately have some shortcomings for me, and why I say I probably won't be going back to watch it over and over again, is frankly I did find the story not boring, but just like, I don't know, I never was like super drawn into everything that was going, like I didn't have any personal connections with any of the characters. It's plot driven to the nth degree. And because of that, like there's not really, I felt a lot of resonance for it for me. You mentioned recognizing some themes of environmental impact. I guess I didn't pick up on that so much, but it may be that I just was not in the right headspace for it. I was probably carried away with all the gore that was happening. But talk about that a little bit. I find that really interesting. I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, so I had gotten a lot of tones that it felt kind of like this man coming in and taking on the land, and of course I don't remember anybody's name because they're fantasy names and they're made up.
Yeah, they're real
But
weird.
yeah, but Patton Oswald's character is making like this big show of conquering land and destroying this woman's swamp, and it felt a lot like a Native American situation of how we just destroyed their land. And I really picked that up with this like woman being so close to nature and being so close to the swamp and everything. And then after I got done with the movie, I was like, what did I just watch? I love that so much. And I went and read about it, and it confirmed that there was a lot of environmental messaging. So I was like, that's really cool that that's what part of it was, and that's why Lucy Lawless felt drawn to the role.
Sure, and to be totally honest with you, now that you mention it, when you say it explicitly like that, it becomes like, yeah, that it feels a little bit more obvious now, and I feel kind of maybe silly that I didn't quite pick up. It definitely has, well, frankly, kind of a Ferngully kind of vibe in its own way.
Yes, yes, it does.
It's and that just kind of hit me here now. Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, again, it's savagely violent and gory, and a lot of things that Ferngully definitely was not. But yeah, that
It
idea
should have
of
been. Should have been.
of important things being destroyed. There is a moment early on in the first portion. This movie is presented in, it's sort of an anthology in the sense that there are definitely distinct chapters, but they're not entirely disconnected. It's more of a saga where each chapter is like a portion of a greater, longer story. There just happens to be big gaps of time between the chapters. But in the first portion, when the character Mongrel, who also has some short films about him, we'll talk about those in a minute, when the character Mongrel is taking the lead, the Xena Warrior Princess character to the Patton Oswalt character, when they get to the city that he's building, he goes off on this short little tirade about civilization. And I don't remember exactly everything he says, except the last line is, and the only smell on the wind is human shit. And he clearly hates everything about his boss and what his boss stands for and what his boss is doing, but he's also a complete mercenary sellout who doesn't care about anything else either.
Yes. Before we move on to talking about the short films, I do want to say that, like you mentioned, it is kind of a multiple chapters.
Yes.
So the first chapter is very much about Patton Oswalt versus Xena Warrior Princess. The second one is where I really loved. It was a story about a town or a city, and there are scholars keeping knowledge to themselves,
Yes.
and they don't feel like it should be shared with the general public. And I was really into that
That was
concept.
probably my favorite of the chapters overall.
Yes, exactly. And then the third one, that's where I kind of fell off a little bit, where I was like, okay, I love the first two, and that's why it doesn't get a solid 5 from me. And I did finish the movie and go back and rewatch it again just to see if, like, maybe I was distracted and not, like, because I loved it so much.
Oh, yeah.
And then the last half hour, I didn't connect with it as much. And I think it didn't have, like, the big themes that I had kind of recognized in the first and second chapter.
Sure.
Um, so the first hour is like incredible, and then I could just turn it off once the guy gets all the powers and kills everybody
Right.
in the
Yeah,
town.
for sure. I did like that second chapter for a lot of the same reasons you did.
Hmm.
I also really enjoyed the bit where they go back and explain the overarching mythology behind the bloom, the flower that is
Oh
the
yes.
centerpiece.
Yep.
I thought it had like vibes of what am I thinking of? The Celestials from the Marvel universe.
Oh,
The
the
giant
Eternals?
space.
Or
Yeah,
no,
from
sorry.
Eternals. Yeah, yeah. The
Yeah, yeah.
Celestials, the judge.
Big
What's his
big
name?
dudes.
Asherim, Arishem, the judge, and all of that. And I enjoyed the style, the slight style variation of that compared to the
Hmm.
rest of the film. I thought that was super cool to have that little aside. But yeah, let me ask you: did you feel like
Hmm.
even at 90 minutes, it felt overly long a little bit? Like this could have maybe been an hour.
Yes, exactly. Because I think at the hour it was the first two, and I love them the
I
most. So I mean,
could see that.
I think that they did need to wrap it up, so they did have to add something. They couldn't just end with like this guy's powerful and
Sure.
Xena's naked talking to some guy in the snow. Like that would be a weird way to stop it.
I did
But I didn't like the way it wrapped up.
I did very much like the very, very last beat where this lady, her whole crusade here over the course of the movie has been to ensure the plant is gone, to
Hmm.
get there and make sure this last one is gone, and then she defeats the bad guy in the battle where all the chain of guardians rise up as zombie guardians and fight everybody, and then she dies and everybody dies, and then there's just a rain of spores falling
Yep.
everywhere.
It's
And
so
it makes you
foreboding.
wonder
Yeah.
which is a worse scenario: a world where this powerful plant is very, very rare and people slaughter and murder each other over it, or a world where this super powerful plant is everywhere. It's like, I think
Ooh.
I thought it was an interesting finish for the film overall.
Yep. Yeah, I loved it. It was very ominous.
Sure.
Brought things back together.
So we
Yeah.
did mention some short films. There's the company Gorgonaut that put this together. Morgan Galen King is the name of the fella behind that company, and he actually made some short films that he put on YouTube. And I feel terrible because I've just completely forgotten what the name of the one is.
Exordium.
Exordium, yes,
Hmm.
Exordium, Exordium.
You have won the spelling bee. Good
You look
job.
that up on YouTube. It's a short film, also rotoscope animation style.
Hmm.
It's sort of a prequel story. It's just a little 8-minute film that this same fella made. Oh my gosh, sound effects. Pay no attention to the man behind the
I
curtain.
can't hear them, so
Oh, well, it'll
I
be
like
on my
that. I'm
side of
not
the
hearing sound
recording for
effects. Okay.
sure. And so that's a cool little thing. Nice thing about that is I can confirm it spoils absolutely nothing about the film itself.
Hmm.
So I recommend just go watch that 8-minute short film before you go watch the movie. It's an extra 8 minutes tacked on, and it's super cool. I also
If you
mentioned.
like,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
sorry. I was just gonna say, if you like that, it will give you a good indication of whether you will like the movie.
Yes.
I loved the little short
Yeah,
film.
it was
Like
super
that
cool.
was just a perfect little bite-sized thing.
It's also really nice in the sense that, like, it's 8 minutes, and I was immediately like, oh, I want more of this, right? I want
Yes,
more of
it made
this
me
now.
so excited for the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
I
agreed.
mentioned that character Mongrel, who's a part of the first big chapter of the film. There are also a couple of shorts that he made about that character that are available on his YouTube channel. If you find Exordium and then you go to his channel, they're there in his video list. And those are super fun, too. They're at least one of them, I believe both of them are actually more of a flash animation than rotoscoped, but they're still super cool and definitely give you some background that you might be interested in, and also just shows you kind of the development of these folks' style going into this movie. So, Michelle,
Yes.
closing thoughts on The Spine of
Closing
Night?
thoughts. I loved it. I did love. If I was gonna compare the two, I love the YouTube video more, though. Even so, like I loved that little 8-minute video so much. It made me so excited for the movie, and I think that's partially why I loved it. It really prepped me for like this is going to be perfect for me. And my closing thoughts will be a quote from Exordium, the little
Ooh.
8-minute film, which is, "What is man? Nothing."
So that's the Spine of Night, guys. I came in 3.5. Michelle came in 4.5. That brings us down on a flat average 4 out of 5 skulls. And that's not too bad.
Nice.
I think we both strongly recommend you go check this one out at least once. Some of you,
Yes.
all of you are going to have a good time. Some of you are going to have a movie that you're going to want to check out more than once. Some of you are going to have a movie where you're going to be like, I need to go call my dealer and watch this movie again. It is what it is. Very much, again, in the tradition of movies like Heavy Metal and Wizards, and Ralph Bakshi made a movie called Fire and Ice, which is like an animated Conan the Barbarian and Red Sonja. If you haven't seen it, you got to see it. It's super cool. Michelle,
Yes.
we made it through number 2.
We did! And number 2, it smells like shit on the wind, as Pat Oswalt said.
Call back.
Oh, bringing it back. That's how
Right
we close
on.
all the shows.
For
from
sure.
now on.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up for now. We'll be back again next week with another title. What's it going to be? I mean, we already know, but we're not going to tell you. You're just going to have to wait. So thanks for listening. Say goodbye, Michelle.
Goodbye, Michelle.
Later, everybody.
Never gets old. Bye.